episode 124, MSK Sports Podiatrist. I'm your host, Dr. Justin Trosclair, and today we hear Nick Knight's perspective. Join 2017 and 2018 Podcast Awards nominated host as we get a behind-the-curtain look at all types of doctors and guest specialties. Let's hear a doctor's perspective. Thanks for tuning in again. Hope your week is going amazing. Your quarter is going fantastic, meeting your goals. I want to start out and just say thank you to my 130 guests so far. Without you, I couldn't have a show. And I know sometimes there's the coaches, some people don't really care for that because it feels like there's an ulterior motive. It's like, sure, but as long as they provide value on the show, I'm okay with them potentially getting client, right? If they provide value. And then there's other guests. They just want to share what they've experienced, what they've learned. And other guests, they look at it as an opportunity to showcase what they can do to their local community, and it's a good opportunity for them. So it's a win-win on both sides. So I really appreciate them and everything that they bring to the table each week. I know I've learned a lot, and with such a variety of guests, it's everything that I wanted it to be. So thank you again. Now, this is the last week of our official podiatry series. We had a couple people that were unable to make the deadline, so don't be shocked if in the next 2 months or 3 months we have a few extra podiatry guests. Today, we're coming from Hampshire, United Kingdom, which is south of London. I'm not sure how far away, but it's definitely not London. He's got a fun story. Podiatry was not his first choice, but as luck would have it, it was the best choice for him to do the things that he loves because he's super into sports. And so we actually find out, well, what kind of musculoskeletal focused podiatrists do? What kind of conditions are they treating? The one that he explains is one that I haven't really heard much about. So that's cool. It's not like ankle sprains, or nothing against ankle sprains. We had another guest that talked about that. But just it's a new topic for this series, which is fantastic. We're going to talk about the zero gravity treadmill, as well as doing those 3D gait analysis at shoe stores, what to look out for, the good and the bad. And also, Dr. Knight is into research, not PhD style, but like the clinical aspect. And so he has some research that he is finalizing. We're not sure when that's going to actually, come out, but the results are promising for what he researched. So we'll talk about that a little bit as well. We'll touch on hiring staff and ways to keep his wife happy since they've been knowing each other since 14. Yes, that long. All in all, a fantastic episode. I do want to give you a heads up. The first 10 minutes or so, there's a little bit more popping than usual. His microphone was too close, but we fixed it. And so just bear with it a little bit and you'll be able to get a ton of information. Remember all the show notes and transcripts, which will have grammatical errors. So if you like to do that and you want to contribute to the show, send me an email with a polished transcript and I will copy and paste it. And I'll even put your name below it, letting people know that you are the one that edited it to perfection. And if you do that, I will give you a shout out as well on the show. The page, adoctorsperspective.net/124. Let's go. Hashtag behind the curtain. Live from China and Hampshire, United Kingdom, we want to welcome to the show a fantastic sports podiatrist. His name is Nick Knight. Welcome to the show.
Many thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. Well, I'm excited. I've been trying to get, in this podiatry series, a sports person who that's all they do, and we've had some kind of dabble in it. But from your website, it looks like you're on hardcore. I mean, you got weights in there, probably throwing some kettlebells around. I don't know.
Yeah.
So I'm excited to hear about that. And before we get into it, of all the things, what made you think podiatry?
Mistake. I always wanted to actually tell her I wanted to go in the military. And at school, I was going through the process, going to some trips away with the Royal Engineers. But I didn't tell them I've got exercise-induced asthma. So I told them at the very end, and they sort of just looked at me. They didn't believe me, but that was it. That's my military career over before it even started.
Oh, no.
So then I thought, what about a physiotherapist? So I signed up to be a physio, got all my places, and then some things happened which meant that basically it just didn't go through. So I thought, well, I was 17, 18 at the time, and someone said, what about podiatry? And I thought, what is that? I've never heard of that in my life. So I literally, back in the day before we had Google and everything, I looked in something called Yellow Pages, which back in England is sort of a directory of just people's and businesses' telephone numbers. So I phoned people, wrote to a few people, and only one person replied. And that was a podiatrist called Paul Harradine, and he's a sports podiatrist. I went to shadow him for a couple of days and sort of said, right, that's what I want to do. So off I went to uni, and the rest is history, as they say.
Huh. How you like that? It's funny to see how the things play out, and we'll ask you later on about, like, where do you see the future casting of podiatry and advice for students later on. So you're a podiatrist, and that's what you chose to do, but there's so many options. I mean, you could just do nails all day. You could do surgeries and repair all these ruptures, but you went more into sports MSK field. So how'd that occur, and what's that look like in podiatry world?
So I was quite fortunate. As the university I chose to go to, Northampton, we had a chap called, one of my lecturers called Steve Abel, and he was a big sports musculoskeletal podiatrist. And every Friday, we either had a sports or a pediatrics musculoskeletal clinic. And I've played sport my whole life. I'd much rather be outdoors than indoors. And I imagine that's what attracted me to something like physiotherapy to begin with. So then I thought, right, well, I've almost got this sort of year's worth of experience before I graduate. Let's just build on that. So that's where I knew exactly that's where I wanted to go. I wasn't interested in being a surgeon. I wasn't interested in the routine. I wasn't interested in sort of working in diabetes or rheumatology. I knew exactly that the sports aspect was where I wanted to go. So I just made sure that any jobs I got after university sort of enabled me to get more and more experience to a point where I then left the NHS and started up on my own.
And originally, though, you did have to learn all of that stuff.
Yeah, so through university, we done some placements, and when I first graduated, I had to work in diabetic clinics, I had to work in rheumatology clinics, I had to work doing nail care, but I always made sure that I had 1 day a week at least in a musculoskeletal setting just to continue learning. But yeah, it's I'll do it all the same again because it gives you a nice space, and it definitely just confirms to me what I wanted to do. And then I was just fortunate enough along my journey to help to meet people on the way who could just help me steer me in the right direction.
Are you a small amount of MSK providers? I mean, are y'all like, of all the podiatrists, y'all are kind of a little small sliver, right?
Yeah, I would say so. I don't know the exact numbers, but podiatry in the UK is a small profession anyway. But I would say the pure people who, like myself, who just do only musculoskeletal and sports injuries, that's sort of an even much, much smaller. Because there are a lot of people who do a mix of musculoskeletal, mix of routine, but there aren't many of us that purely. I don't own any scalpels. I don't own any nail nippers or anything like that. There's nothing in my clinic like that. So there's not.
So you're not doing orthotics all day?
No. The orthotics, I reckon, are about 30% of my clinical stuff. But most of the stuff we're doing is rehab because we've got the gyms, we've got the weights, we've got the anti-gravity treadmill, we've got the 3D gait analysis. So the way I look at it is that, well, I prefer getting people stronger, and then if they still got problems once they're stronger, then we can then look at orthotics. Whereas if you asked me 5 years ago, before I had that knowledge around about the rehabilitation, I would just issue people orthotics all the time. And now it is massively reduced. The more I learn, the less I issue orthoses. So
that's a good thing.
Yeah.
If you don't need it, don't get them.
Yeah, exactly.
Do you recommend, just curious, I use some of the ones that they're like the doctor brand of and it's kind of over the counter if you want to think about it. They're not custom. Do you still recommend people use those type?
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think Nike has a very good insert, to be honest, those types of shoes.
I will give people and recommend people to go buy some off the counter. For me, there's no evidence to show that a custom device is always going to be better than an off the shelf device. It's all about getting the right products for the right person.
Mm-hmm.
And if I am with the patient who I want them to use their orthoses for 6-8 weeks, I will always try and put them in an off the shelf pair because it's a lot cheaper for them with the end actually in 6 to 8 weeks it's just to bin them because you don't need them anymore. So, but I won't, if someone comes in and says, I've been told I need orthotics, I've got flat feet but I don't have any pain, they won't get orthotics. I don't believe if it's not broke, don't fix it. So some people go hunting for problems, and that's a bad road to go down because you don't know what you're going to find.
Yeah. Now all of a sudden you got to retrain the entire calf and all the little foot muscles for no reason. Now it hurts, doc. Dang it. Yeah. Well, what are some of the most common issues that you're seeing on a day-to-day basis? Like maybe your favorite, and then walk us through what are you doing for these people? Because I know what I do, and I know what a PT might do.
Me, in our clinics, we're different in that actually forefoot pain is the most common problem we see, whereas most podiatrists, their common problem is heel pain, and specifically plantar fasciitis, but that's forefoot pain. So, and one of the most common conditions we'll see is a plantar plate injury. We're just about to publish, well, look at starting to publish our own clinical data, because if you look at managing it, there's a load of evidence and research around about the surgical approach. There's nothing out there around the conservative management of plantar plate injuries. So we're just auditing our own data as we speak. And the initial sort of me having sort of a quick glance at it is showing encouraging results. So what we tend to be doing is we'll use a lot of taping in the beginning just to offload the toe. We'll put a stiff, rigid carbon insole inside the shoe for 6 to 8 weeks, give them foot intrinsic strengthening exercises, possibly then look at giving them an orthosis as well with a metatarsal dome just to offload the forefoot, and then have a graded return to running, and then make the exercise program specific to their sport that they're going to do. So, for example, if they're a runner, they need to be able to jump up and down on their foot without it hurting. Otherwise, if they can't do that, they can't run. So we're finding that when we do all that together, we're actually getting people back to running, and they're staying running. They're not getting re-injured as of yet. So it's all very new because no one's actually looking at data and publishing anything like this at the moment. So we could be sort of the first clinic to offer, okay, look, this is what we're doing. This is the regime we come up with. In our hands, it works. We want other people to see it. Is it just me and my staff that it works with, or actually can anyone take this and it'll work with anyone? And it'll be fun to find out. There's going to be a journey we're going to go along, I think, with this. And because I'm getting a bit of a reputation. I had a patient come and say, "Oh, you're the plantar plate king," and I'm thinking, I didn't ask for it. It's just I developed an interest in, and I've had people travel from abroad to come see me just to help treat their plantar plate, and I seem to be getting a reputation for this.
For us who don't know what a plantar plate is, what is that, like the first and second toe, or should I just shut up and let you tell me what it is?
So, if you think of it, essentially it's an extension of the plantar fascia. So as the plantar fascia comes down to the lesser toes, it's the structure that helps attach your metatarsal to your phalanx effectively. And if you see someone with a hammer toe deformity, the chances are they've had a plantar plate injury, which has then resulted in a hammer toe deformity. The issue is that around about 40% of people can have a plantar plate injury and have no symptoms. The big question from that is we don't know, out of those people who have no symptoms, in 10 years' time, do they have symptoms? And that's the question I want answered, but I haven't got that answer. My guess is that if you've had a plantar plate rupture, the odds of you developing a hammer toe later on in life will be higher, and then that may then cause symptoms. So people think it's the hammer toe is the problem, but actually that problem started maybe 10 years ago when the plantar plate tore or ruptured, but it didn't hurt then, so they didn't think about it.
Isn't it wild that they could just not hurt? That just...
Again, I don't know why, but that's what the evidence shows us, and they've done some studies looking at that, and that's what they found. It is mostly one of the papers I quote the most when talking about plantar plate injuries, because I was looking at it thinking, wow, that's not a small number. That's not like 5-10%. That's a big chunk of people. So the human body amazes me every day.
It really does. Same here. I mean, all right. One of the powerful things that we can do is stories. And it sounds like, from what you already said, you got people coming all over the place because you're the plantar plate king. So,
according to my patients.
Yeah.
That's not my words. That's my patients. I've never called myself a king of anything. It's
You don't want to put that in your email, Nick? Power quotation mark.
My motto is never be the smartest person in the room. Never be the person who knows the most. If that's the case, I'm in the wrong room. I need to move rooms. So you can always learn more. So.
That's fantastic. So give us like a story or two of like these success stories that you have that just makes you say, this is why I keep doing podiatry, and this is what gets me up in the morning.
So one of them was she wasn't a sporting patient. She had a stroke many years ago. It was at least 5 to 10 years before she saw me. And she was having issues with confidence and walking and felt like she was going to keep on tripping and falling. And she was starting to put a bit on weight, and she was starting to get a little depressed about everything. And we worked with her for a few months about just getting her moving better, getting her stronger. And then she got to the point where she'd go up for a 10-mile walk and not worry about it. She'd just come back sort of near enough crying because she felt she got her life back. And to me, that, in a way, yeah. And for me, this is the sort of misconception. People think musculoskeletal, they think sports, they think high-end athletes. But for us, it's as long as you've got a goal and you want to get active, it doesn't matter if your goal is to go out for a few miles walk with the family at the weekend, whether it is to be an Olympic champion. At the end of the day, you want to be active, you have a goal, so we'll help you get there. So another story would be a lady with stage 3 tibialis posterior tendinopathy. And unfortunately, she had rheumatoid arthritis as well, which was really aggravating. And she had some longitudinal splits within her tendon. But due to work and medical history, she wasn't a candidate for surgery. It was just too high risk for her. And her son was sort of a sub-elite tennis player. So he was starting to break through. So she was traveling all over the world with him playing tennis. And she was finding that she just couldn't do the walking anywhere. And so we worked with her for about a year, and we used a muscle stimulator, we used Ritchie braces, we got everything nice and strong. And it did take about a year to get what we wanted, just because I think the rheumatoid arthritis was playing such a factor. Because whilst I was seeing her, her steroids were constantly being changed, her methotrexate, and then she moved on to biologics. And she then came back one day saying, I think I'm getting better. I said, why is that? She said, I've just been away with my mum lives in New York, and I've just been over there. And I just realised, I just went for a walk, and I walked around Central Park, and I went, the whole way? She said, yeah, the whole way. And it didn't hurt. No, it was fine. So, yeah, that was enough, because she come in hobbling, and she got to the point where she could then travel back with her son, doing everything she wanted. And
Patients forget how quick where they were in pain.
yes.
And when they start getting better, they're like, I'm still hurting. You're like, yeah, but you can actually go 5 kilometers now. Before you couldn't even go 1. They're like, oh, yeah.
We don't speak about pain much in clinic, i.e. we talk about function more, i.e. how much can you do before you have to stop. And we often will take patients back to where they were, just to remind, because that people quickly forget where they were. But then people also quickly think that being in pain and not walking as far as they want to is normal. So there's the other side of it as well.
I don't know about you. Sometimes I feel like those type of clients, when you're doing MSK work, is great. Because sometimes these athletes, they want so much. And you might be really excited about athletes. The demands that they need, or maybe they're above my skill set, or it's just, they really need this to work as much as possible. And I'm just kind of like, well, maybe I just haven't enough experience with those high athletes where you can just say, hey, you actually need to take a break. Or, hey, you know what? Your Olympic dreams, they're crushed. You're done. I don't want to be that guy that says, sorry, buddy, next year.
Yeah, it's difficult. Especially if they're a professional athlete and it is their career, it's hard to have those conversations with them. But when you're involved in those kind of cases, it's not just myself. It's myself. There'll be a physiotherapist. There'll be a strength and conditioning coach. There'll be a sports doctor. There'll be a whole team of us that are involved. And in those cases, it's normally the sports doctor that has sort of the ultimate control of the case, and they sort of then farm out the work to us podiatrists, physios, and strength and conditioning coaches. So I don't normally have to tell the athletes directly, because that normally comes from the doctor. So it saves those awkward conversations.
Yeah.
So, but we've had a couple where we turn around and said, look, your dream of getting a good time at, say, a London Marathon this year, we're going to have to postpone that because you just missed too much training, and you're not going to get it back. Because the issue is when you're competing at a super high level, having an injury, it will take you people forget how long it will take you to get back to that level. Don't get me wrong, these athletes, they could get back to doing sort of a 2-hour 20 marathon quite quickly. But then if they want to try and break down to sort of doing a 2:10, 2:8 marathon, then actually it takes a hell of a lot of work just to shave those extra sort of 5-10 minutes off.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it has its challenges. It has its perks as well. It's different kind of challenges from treating the non-elite, but you're still under pressure with the non-elites, because we had he was a decent runner, just a decent club runner, ruptured his Achilles tendon, and then a few months after surgery, he had his wedding, and he wanted to walk down the aisle unaided for his wedding, which is a big thing. So that was touch and go, but he got there. So yeah, that was a stressful thing. Okay, we hope we can get him there, but he knew that it was a long shot and it paid off. But He knew, he understood, and his expectations are managed. That this may not happen, and I think overall that's a big thing. You've got to manage people's expectations and what they're realistically going to get out of treatment.
Yeah, very good. Hey, do you do any of the weightless treadmill stuff? You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, the anti-gravity, the Ultra G. Yeah, so we.
Yeah, do you do that? What do you think about that?
Yeah, no, we've got one in one of the physiotherapy clinics that I work out. So we got one in there. Absolutely love it. Absolutely love it. It is fantastic for people who've got an injury. They can still keep on running on the weightless treadmill, on the anti-gravity treadmill. It's also good for people who, if you need them to lose some weight, put them on the treadmill and say, look, this will not be like if you lost 20% of your body weight. This is how it would feel.
Ooh.
But it's also good for people who have had a stroke or something, teaching them, helping them to walk again, because you can do it in a safer environment. You can take the weight off and you can gradually get them to learn. So it has multiple uses. I don't think there's enough of them personally in the country. I think they're a very, very good tool. I think they're underused, but I think they're only underused because they're not cheap.
Yeah.
So
when you're looking at 3D analysis, I know in America sometimes you can go to like the shoe store.
Yeah.
And they'll have like a little setup, or maybe sometimes they'll have like a doctor that's just trying to like get their name out there as like a little clinic. Let me analyze your walk. Is there any like 1 or 2 pointers that we should look at to know if this person knows what they're doing, or common things that we see, like a lot of your runners have this same issue, so that's kind of where to start with?
So I think for me, big red flags are if you go and say get shoes fitted, or even if you're in a medical clinic, if they're doing a gait analysis and they're just looking, so say they're trying to fit shoes or something, and they're just looking just at the foot and nothing else, and they're just talking about overpronation and you've got a flat foot, so you must do this. Well, actually, the foot's connected to the leg, which is connected to the thigh, so connected to the hip. So you need to look at it all, and because there is actually little evidence out there linking excessive pronation to injuries, and I personally hate the term overpronation because it doesn't tell us anything, but people get banded around all the time, and it just frustrates me. And then if they turn around and say, right, we're going to stick you in a set of shoes or stick you in a set of orthoses to straighten you up, that's when you say, no, I'm out of here. You go, you run away as quick as you can because they're just talking a lot of rubbish. So they're the things that I would look out for. They're the big things to say. Alarm bell should be ringing.
I like it. I was reading something, or I was listening to a podcast the other day, and one of the things there were people were talking about, how do I get people's email, and they were talking about like a banker or like real estate or something. And one of their suggestions was, look at the top 5 bad things about something. And that's what just popped in my head. I was like, oh, there you go. You got a top 5 things to watch out for with a gait analysis. Boom, give me your email. And now you got them on a back end marketing campaign. But that's just where my brain goes. Okay, this is kind of a dual question, so you can take it how you want. Any advice for either the person that's kind of in high school or like undergrad looking to go into maybe podiatry, they're thinking about it, and then bridging that into where are you seeing, at least in the UK, over the next 5 years?
So I think I'm going to be biased because I am a podiatrist and I love my job. So maybe take the answer I give with a pinch of salt because I love my job and I love being a podiatrist, and I would recommend it to anyone. And in hindsight, I am glad I'm a podiatrist rather than the physio, because I feel that people assume that I can specialise more, but actually titles don't matter. But that's a whole other conversation. I think if they're interested, I say, look, do it. Podiatry in the UK has quite a reputation of it's literally just a lot of podiatrists just cut nails, take off callus and remove corns and that sort. People don't often see the podiatry, but I do. And you can still go and do all that with my degree. And podiatry is great because you've got so many, you can train to become a surgeon, you can do the sports things, you can work in rheumatology, pediatrics, diabetes, you can do the routine care. There are so many avenues in which you can go down. We get access to certain medication that we can administer and issue to patients as well. So don't be put off by the cover, as it were. So don't judge a book by its cover would be a good term to use. It is something I would, if you're interested in it, go and shadow a couple of podiatrists. And if you can, go and shadow what I would call a generalist, someone who just does the nails, corns and callus. But then if you're interested in the surgery, you may be interested in the sports, go and shadow just a sports podiatrist or a musculoskeletal podiatrist, or go shadow a surgeon, because I have people I had someone in my clinic yesterday, and I have people in my clinic all the time. And most podiatrists are actually really receptive for people coming into the clinic, I think. And then the second part of that question is, podiatry in the UK is actually what we call an at-risk profession. We're actually declining in workforce, not increasing. So we've definitely got a turbulent time ahead. And I think part of the reason why is that as a profession, we have been crap at collecting our own data. Sorry, excuse me. So we can't actually show how effective we are. Hence why I'm doing my own auditing data to show how effective we are. So when you then come to the commissioning bodies, they sort of say, okay, what can podiatry do? We know we're good. We know we can help people, but we just haven't got the numbers to back it up. And I think there's going to be a tough time for podiatry in the next 5 years. Where it will end up, I don't know. But the way I view it, there are always going to be people who need my help. So my title may change over time. I don't know. But to be honest, my patients don't care about my title. They just come in saying that I've got this problem. Can you help me? And they really don't mind if I'm a physio. I get called physiotherapist, doctor, podiatrist, pediatrician, all those things on a daily basis. And I correct them. But patients, they don't care. As long as I can get them better, that's all they're worried about.
Okay, so research takes money, and I don't know how much PhDs are out there doing hardcore research for podiatry versus just, well, the PTs or the physios, they're doing research, so we just have to hang our hat on what they're doing. But it's two different things. Like for the MSK stuff, great. But when you're talking diabetic ulcers and all that, I mean, I don't know who else would be doing those things in the NHS system if y'all aren't doing them.
Research is getting done. I think the research needs to take a step back and look at things, because a lot of the research is done within NHS setting, because the issue in private practice is trying to obtain ethics and the financing of research, you say, because it's expensive. However, we know that most podiatry contacts in the UK occur outside of the NHS. So if you're doing research on your patients in the NHS, you're actually missing a much bigger cohort outside the NHS. So we need to come up with a way of how can we get research into sort of private practice. And with my big aim thing, I want to build a brand in the company that we do have a research budget privately, and we start contributing towards the literature. But then also I think, from my view, the other thing is that I've just come back and doing my own research project. So I've seen both sides of the coins of the research and the clinical aspect. And I think there is a bit of a gap. So what happens in research doesn't always happen in clinic, and it can take up to 17 years for research to filter down to clinical practice. And we need to bridge that gap. So there are a couple of clinicians who, what they're called, clinical academics. So they're people who research, but they're also people that work in clinics. And I think researchers need to try and start teaming up with clinicians more, and clinicians need to start teaming up with researchers, because then you can then see both sides of the coin and then work together. And I think once we get that, I think we'll start seeing changes. But it all comes down to how's it going to get financed. It all costs money at the end of the day, unfortunately.
Do y'all have a strong body of podiatrists that actually contribute to the national organization? Is that mandatory?
It's not mandatory, no, that each podiatrist should be publishing. There are a small handful of podiatrists who do publish on a regular basis within the UK setting. We just need to find out how can we increase that, and how can we try and bring clinics on board. So actually, when you're doing research, you get the researchers to do the bulk of the stats and the research, but you can get clinicians contributing their data towards the research, and then you can then start building bigger, better studies. But it would be too hard to police, and the issue is it's just time and money. Again, it's and I realise it takes a special kind of person. So I always thought I'd be good at research. However, doing my research project, I realised I am not a researcher. It's not. I'm severely dyslexic, and I found it was the hardest thing I ever done, writing in an academic way. And so it made me realise I am a clinician who's interested in research, and I'm prepared to help out in research, but I am no way a researcher. So maybe we need to find out what we're all good at and just stay in our lanes and don't divulge out. But hey, that's just my view. I may be completely wrong, but who knows?
No, I agree. To know where you're good at. Like, I'm more clinician. I will do what I can, but if you guys could take the reins and write this thing up and tell me what y'all want, I can do it. Just what do y'all need? You know?
Yeah, exactly.
So you sound like you have your own clinic based on your logo and everything. The NK
Yep.
would be yours. So
Yes.
hiring staff, how do you find good ones? What makes them good? What kind of advice do you have for us?
So I recently had to, one of my staff members left, and I had to get a new one. And I think the big thing for hiring staff is build your personal clinical brand first. So I put one advert out on a small on a Facebook group, and I had about 15, 16 applicants just from, it wasn't even a paid advert, it's just literally a post I put up, and I just generated so much interest because apparently I'm starting to develop this brand that's what we do. We did sports and musculoskeletal, so people knew what they wanted. And I think it's just trying to create a culture of people in your clinic who, for me, it has to be about work ethic and the right person. I can teach clinical skills to people, but I can't teach personal skills. So it's about people trying to be efficient with their time. It's people who are willing to go the extra mile when they need to. Because, you know, for well-being a clinician yourself, you'll have days where you're absolutely rammed in clinic and you just got to stay slightly later. And then you'll have days where things are quiet, so you can maybe get off home a little early. It just swings around about, it all comes around again. And then I think it's about, for me, making sure that they've got the company's interests at heart as well. So we're all singing off the same hymn sheet. So for me, it comes back to more personal attributes than it does clinical ones, because yes, you got to have some clinical skills, but you can teach that. But I can't change people's personalities. But I hope by building the brand, I attract the right kind of people that I want anyway.
Are you able to have your, I don't know what y'all call them. We call them chiropractic assistants. You know, they can do the front desk, they can do insurance, but at the same time, if you teach them how to do rehab or some kind of, you know, put muscle pads on somebody, you can teach them to do all those types of things. Do y'all have the same system, or do you have to have like a person that's extremely specialized with a certification?
Yes and no. So there's no reason why we couldn't do that, and that's something I am looking into. So you can get podiatry assistants, you can get physiotherapy assistants. Currently, I don't. However, what I may look at is actually see if a podiatry student or something is employ them for a few hours. So they're doing their training, and then we can help supplement what they're learning as well. And then they can do some of the, if we tell them this is the exercises I want you to teach this patient, you can go away and teach it, because there's always a set standard operation procedure. There's all a set structure. So it's almost like a flow chart exercise where they've just got to follow instructions, and
that's a good thing.
And it'll be okay. And then in podiatry, there's talks of bringing in a sort of a podiatry apprenticeship scheme. So people, whilst they're going through their education, are set out in place with set learning objectives to do. So there's no reason why you can't incorporate it. The biggest thing I've learned actually in the last couple of months is I've realised that clinicians make rubbish admin staff and expensive admin staff. So if you've got a clinician, don't get them to do admin, hire an admin person. So
they can fill in when they're sick, but you don't want them full time doing that.
No, because they're rubbish at it. So
as they should be.
I am absolutely rubbish at doing administrative tasks. If you ask me how do we bill insurance companies, I've got no idea. Ask my secretary and she'll tell you, but me personally, no idea.
Before I sold my clinic, I talked to my assistant, and she was kind of telling me too. She's like, "Hey, you think we can record the flow on the computer, or like, do I need to write down how to do all this billing?" She's like, "I'd hate to, get in a car accident and you're out of luck because I'm the only person that does it." I'm like, you know what? That's a great idea. I appreciate that. Why don't you get on that?
Yeah, everything in art is there's a standard operation procedure for everything. So it is. If the unfortunate happened and I lost my admin person, someone else would come in and
they'd be good to go.
Pick up.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Hey, we all like to market. I've noticed you have a really good color scheme. You got a pretty good logo going on. Your website is. Yeah. You must have a really good professional, I would think, setting up everything, because everything looks really good. I'm like, wow, I'm jealous. I wish I would do something like that. Plus other marketing. Give us some of your tips on that.
So for me, the biggest and best marketing tool I've had so far has been going out and just speaking to other healthcare professionals and just building that up, saying that, hi, I'm Nick, this is what I can do. Let's have a chat. Let's So that's how I built up my relationships with my foot and ankle orthopedic surgeons that refer a lot of work to me. And then that then filters down to word of mouth from patients. You're only as good as the last patient you treated. So if they have a good experience, they're more likely to go away and shout about it. And then the other thing for me is social media is Facebook's fantastic for marketing. I think people have to view Facebook as a massive marathon, not a sprint. And Gary Vaynerchuk speaks a lot about that. And if people wanted books to go have a read of some of his books. I audio listen to everything, so they do some. They're good to listen to. For example, I don't measure return on investment on Facebook because I'm not at a stage where it's relevant yet. And I've been using Facebook to help build my business for every year, and I still think I'm not in a place where I need to start measuring because I think some people, they'll do a Facebook ad and then they'll say, oh, it didn't work, so Facebook doesn't work. Well, they just haven't been consistent enough, in my opinion. It's
almost brand recognition for you.
Yeah, you got to build that brand first. You can't just sort of that trust relationship. You can't just go in and say, oh, here I am, I can fix you.
You mean that doesn't work?
Yeah. So yeah, but they would be my tips on trying to go out and help bring more work into the company.
When you're going to talk to orthopedic surgeons and who knows what else, do you have like a game plan that you can share? Like, what are you talking about? How are you approaching them? Do you have to bring food or tea?
Oh, no. Yeah, no. I won't go unless they've got tea. I need tea. I just go and I just sit there and I'll chat, and I will just offer my opinion when a patient comes in, and I'll say, well, actually, this is how I would do this, or this is what I would do. And then a lot of the time they sit, okay, actually, no, that's a sensible idea. Let's try this before operating. And so I don't go in with a set game plan. I just go in there, be myself, offer my opinion, and 9 times out of 10, it then tends to build a relationship from there. So I think just go in there and be yourself. Don't try and be someone you're not, because you'll get caught out eventually.
Especially if it's not flowing good with your conversation. You're like,
yeah.
What was I supposed to say at that point?
Yeah, and I disagree with them as well. If they say something and I don't quite believe that, I'll say to them, well, actually, my views aren't the same on that. Because if you talk about surgeons, they are tremendously skilled at operating, but they won't know all the latest evidence behind the conservative management. So they may be giving some advice to someone that's actually slightly dated, and they'll happily say, actually, do you know what? Here's the latest evidence, and I'll email you the paper if you want, and you can have a read. And then, so I've actually changed some of the orthopedic surgeons I work with on conservative management advice they give to some of their patients.
That's true, because they might say this is a surgical candidate, and you're like, no, and for the last 4 years, you could have actually done this, and you don't have to do that surgery.
And the flip side of for me is I try and keep it up to date as best I can with new surgical techniques and everything, but I'm not a surgeon, so I will give my patients some basic advice around surgery, but I will say, look, if you want to speak to someone about surgery, speak to a surgeon, because that's what they do day in, day out. I don't operate, so I'm not the best person to give. And again, that's about staying in your lane and just moving them on when it goes past my remit.
Exactly. Well, this has been fantastic. I've got to respect your time, so we're gonna put it into 4th gear. We're gonna go to the personal side. Let's get at it. You ready?
Yeah.
Okay. Now you have your own business now. Vacation all of a sudden isn't just given to you.
Exactly.
So what can you do to take time off and recharge?
So for me, taking time off is so important. And my wife gets a generous annual leave allowance. So I basically, when she's off, I just book time off. When I first started my business, I was petrified about taking time off. But now I'm like, I just do it. And you know what? The business is still there when I come back. It hasn't disappeared.
Yeah.
And it is so important that you do that. Otherwise, you'll just burn out. So that's why I personally don't work weekends. I play too much sport. Hockey is my main sport, so I will never work on a Saturday because
hockey.
I'll say not field hockey, not ice hockey.
Okay, field hockey. I was wondering, like, really, ice hockey? Okay, field hockey. Yeah, I don't even know, barely know what that is, but let's go with it.
It's getting bigger in the US. The US women team are getting better and better. So that's what I do. I make sure that I have and I just tell my patients, they say, can I see you on a Saturday? And I sort of say, no, I'm playing sport and That's a lot. I will say to them, no, look, but if you want to see me on Saturday, we can work around the hockey. But for me to inconvenience myself around that, you're going to have to pay at least double my normal fees if you want to see me. And no one ever does.
That shuts it down.
It does. I'm not interested in seeing people on a weekend. I've got no issue if my staff want to work a weekend, but I will never force any of my staff to work a weekend because I will only ask my staff to do what I'm comfortable doing myself. If they want to work a Saturday and have a weekday off, fine. But if they don't want to work a Saturday, I will never turn around and say you must work Saturday because I will never work a Saturday. So
yeah, I hear that. And how are you keeping a home work-life balance?
That as the business grows, that's difficult, really difficult. So I found I've had to reduce my clinical hours to make sure that I was finding that I was working so many hours in clinic, then trying to do the business stuff, then trying to finish my MSc, then having a newborn. I was just like, whoa, this is too much. Something's got to give. So I had a chat with my business coach about, okay, where do we go with things? And so I reduced my clinical hours, got some staff in, and just handed in my master's dissertation. So that's all. Now work life is much better, so that I will work during the week quite hard, but then make sure I don't do anything on the weekends at all. I'm kind of lucky in a way that my wife's got a stress. She's a general practitioner, so she's a doctor, and she works long hours as well. So it's not uncommon for us to have a 12-hour day, but we make sure by the time Friday evening comes, we don't do anything until Monday morning. And that, for me, that just is enough just to recharge and keep going. But having your own business, it gives the if I need to drop list one off at nursery, I've got the flexibility in my diary just to do that because I'm my own boss. So if I don't want to work, I just don't work. It's as simple as that, really.
Yeah, and you've been able to hire people to fill in those gaps.
Yeah, exactly.
I was about to say, what do you do with your kid? Because if you're going 10 hours and she's working 12 hours, you're like, oh.
Well, a lot of my family live really close by. So it's great. My mum's nearby, my father-in-law, mother-in-law. Then she goes to the nursery. So really good family support, which
that's awesome.
We couldn't do it without. So we're really grateful for family around.
That's perfect. And I know not everybody has that. So that's one more perk for living near family of some sort.
It is, yeah. It's a massive perk.
Yeah.
and they love it. They love seeing her.
And you've been married for a while. So what are you doing to keep that marriage part alive? Keep that love alive and all that? I actually met my wife at school playing hockey. So part of the reason, mostly, we both got a love for sport and we both got a love for the same sport. So as a family, we're down at a hockey club in winter most weekends. And yeah, for us, it's just we don't it sounds silly. We don't try to force anything. We just let things happen. We chat every day. I always make sure we have at least one joke or one smile at least throughout the whole day. And yeah, it's that just seems to. Well, people ask me all the time, well, how have you gone from since the age of 14 and now I'm 30 and my wife's 31? How's it work? I said, I don't know. It's sort of one of those things we never really planned. It just happened and materialized. And but I think playing the same sport and having the same interest for us really helps because we've missed family birthdays. I've missed anniversaries. She's missed anniversaries to go play hockey because hockey means that much. Our family know if you organise something on a Saturday in the winter, me and my wife will not be there unless we're not playing hockey. That's how important hockey is to us. And I think that's part of the reason as to what keeps us going as a couple. And we both work in the medical industry, so we have some interesting discussions around what's happened at work today. And it's no kidding. A lot of injuries in hockey?
Yeah. You see the normal musculoskeletal injuries that you get in most sort of field sports. You don't see as much ACL injuries and whatnot because it's non-contact. The big ones you tend to see are actually when you see one, it's dislocated shoulders, it's fractured cheekbones. Because if you've been hit with a hockey stick or hit with a hockey ball, these are solid lumps of plastic that can easily travel over 100 miles an hour, and if it hits you, it hurts.
You don't wear no helmets?
No, don't need helmets.
Oh.
No. So it's a proper sport. We don't need that.
Yeah. I don't know. When I get my jaw broken randomly, I'm like, I wouldn't mind a little wrestling helmet.
If you go back to the London 2012 games, there's a Kate Richardson Walsh, one of the female GB hockey players. I was there watching the game at the Olympics, and she got hit by the ball and she broke her jaw. Then 3 days later, she was back playing again. She went surgery, had it pinned. She had to wear a mask, but she was back playing again. And I just think, like, if you're a football player or, as you call it, soccer, that's it. They'd be out for ages. They wouldn't get back up again.
Oh, I'd be done.
It's sort of.
I did Australian football one summer, and
That's a brutal sport. That's brutal.
Denver.
Brutal.
I was playing like co-ed. It was just sort of like touch, because there's girls and guys, and that's just not fair. And I was at practice and whatnot, and I go to practice one day, and they came back from a game, and they go, oh yeah, whatever, Tony, he fell, his elbow dislocated. I was like, dislocated? Like how bad? They're like, oh, it was bad. It was bad. I was like, oh, I can't be. No, I'm good. I can't do this. This sounds out of control. And then you see the YouTube clips, and you're like, that's an 8-foot drop.
Yeah.
Straight to the ground. I was like, nah, I'm done. Hockey. Okay, cool. Now we know a little more about that. Wrapping it up. It's a fun question. There's no wrong answers. Favorite books, blogs, podcasts, something that you could secretly love, and something that just, definitely everybody should check out.
I'm quite sad in that most of the books I read are medical journals and whatnot, so I won't go down into those. My favourite book of all time, I've forgotten. It's such my favourite book. I've forgotten the name of it, but it was by the Lisa Sanders, who was the medic who come up with all the cases for the Doctor House TV series.
Oh yeah.
And I read her book about it, and that was a really good read. Most recently, one of the best books I read is Shoe Dog, the story of how Nike developed. Really, really good read. And then business-wise, there was a book by Neville Wright, and he developed a company in the UK called Kiddie Care, and he just talked about his journey. Now, the reason I like that book, because it's little things like he's dyslexic, the way he speaks, the way his brain works. He uses software called Dragon that I use to do all my notes, and he used it for writing that book. And I just had a lot of connections with him, and it makes you realise that you can listen to all these books from different business people, whether it's healthcare, working in the baby sector, but at the end of the day, it's still all business. There's lots you can take away from actually going outside of your own sector and learning from other sectors and bringing it back. So yeah, that would be. But that's my sort of reading list, really. And other that, it's just medical journals, so it's pretty sad, really.
Well, you got to stay up to it somehow.
Yeah, it keeps me up to date. Otherwise, I'd never keep up to date. So,
hey, what's popular in music around in the UK right now? Or what I say, should popular versus what you actually like? I don't know. They could be the same.
So I'm still listening to the same stuff that I listened to when I was 14.
Yeah.
So I still listen to a lot of Offspring, a lot of Foo Fighters, Red Hot Chili Peppers. I love that sort of rock.
Yeah, you're a 90s kid.
Yeah, exactly. I love that. So I think there's this thing called garage type of music. I've got no idea what it is really that seems to be popular at the moment. I couldn't tell you what it is. Jesus, makes you sound old, doesn't it? Look, just showing my age. Wow, that sounds bad, doesn't it? Say 30 and say showing my age. It's sort of.
Yeah, I'm 36, so I'm not too much older than you. I listen to top 40 sometimes, and I'm just like, wow, okay, so this is what's popular right now. It's like, this is interesting.
Yeah, it's a load of rubbish, some of it, I think. So it's.
Speaking of being old, I remember being like in junior high or high school, and my buddy's mom was listening to the station that I was listening to, and she was all into it and stuff, and I was like, what's this old lady doing? And then I look back, and I'm like, she wasn't old. She was probably like 30. It was like, I'm still loving this music. I'm glad you guys like it too. I was just like, oh man, perspective when you get older.
No, I listen to a radio station called Radio 1 over here a lot, and it's targeted for a younger audience than myself. I'm the upper age of where it is. And sometimes I think people say, I listen to Radio 1, and I get that look from people like, oh, you're too old to listen to that station. So,
just don't play it in your clinic.
Yeah, exactly. So
that's awesome. Well, how can people get more information about you? What's your website? All that jazz.
So website is nksportspodiatry.co.uk, and then I'm on Facebook, NK Sports Podiatry on Facebook, NK Sports Pod on Twitter, and then Podiatry NK Sports on Instagram. So it depends what flavour of social media you like, but we're on them all. And our YouTube is we've got an NK Sports Podiatry YouTube channel, which we're loading more and more stuff up to, and that's great because I get comments all around the world on the YouTube stuff. It's amazing how you can reach people anywhere just with technology.
Search correctly and you'll find it.
Yeah, exactly.
And by the way, it's NK as in his name, Nick Knight. If you couldn't understand him.
Yeah, my British accent. Sorry.
Yeah, I'm just, one day if I go home for like a while, I need to do a podcast episode because my thick Cajun accent will come out. And if I could do a foreign episode again, we'd both be like, what?
Say
Say it again, please. Well, Nick, I really appreciate your time sharing all this information, and I really appreciate you being a part of the Podiatry series.
No, thank you for having me. It's been good fun.
Another great interview has ended. As I always say, I hope you listened, critically think, and implement something so that your practice life, family life can improve this week. I want to hit you up with a few links today. If you'd like to know what the top episodes of 2018 and 2017 were, you can just go to .net/top1718 and you can get a PDF of all those episodes. It's like 22 of them. If you're interested on any of the programs that I've actually been interviewed on, just go to .net/asheardon. So play on as seen on, so as heard on. If you didn't know, the Needleless Acupuncture book sales page has been revamped, so it looks a lot better. Sometimes when you look at a web page and it doesn't look like it's put together well, you're like, I'm not sure about this thing. But it's been redone. It looks better. And also, if you have an Android device and you're curious about it, you can actually now download the same 5 protocols, blueprints if you will, right there on your phone at the Needleless Acupuncture app. And for less than $4, you can get the whole book on your phone from the Android Google Play store. So if you're interested, check that out. The electric acupuncture pen is still available at a great rate. You can get it on its own or as a package. So you can get the book, the e-pen, as well as the auricular points. Now, some of the things that I'm recommending, Blueberry Hosting, that's who I use. I really like them a lot. I'm not going to lie to you. Fiverr is where I get a lot of my music done, my logos. I don't know if you noticed on Facebook, I believe my picture is now a face with a bunch of words. I just saw that real quick. It was cheap. Yeah, why not? I'll try that for a little while. It's fun. Turtle pillow. It's a travel pillow. It actually has like an HB in it, so you can rest your neck and your chin on that, so you don't get like the chicken bob where you're sleeping and you wake up really fast, and those U-shaped ones. I just don't think they work very well. So for me, it's worked really well. I've traveled 10 different countries with it, across the pond, as they say. I really highly recommend that. If you're into instrument-assisted soft tissue manipulation, 2 options. You got Hawk Grips, so .net/Hawk Grips, and also .net/Edge. And you can get tools there as well. But they also have way more than just tools. They've got how to get to use Google Apps as your EMR. Blood flow restriction cuffs. There's a lot of research on that device. And you can check that episode from the past. And you can get an automatic 10% discount on all the products from the Edge mobility equipment. One of the devices I use to send out snippets of the podcast via picture and quotes from the text that I write from the show notes is Missing Letter. They just took out the last E in letter.com. Pretty much, you can do a blast in 2 months, like 5 emails over 2 months. I like to do 9 emails over 12 months. So that person who was interviewed last month doesn't just get lost, right? So every day I have a new episode that I highlight, and it's all automated. It's really cool. Definitely check it out. If you need to record your screen, I like Screencast-O-Matic. Also, JLab audio speakers. I've said it before. I love them. It's a great company. And now I get to actually be an affiliate for them. So if you end up buying any of their products, just like any of these, I get a little piece. Probably have like 3 or 4 different products. The battery lives are longer. The sounds quality is amazing. And for the price, you can't love it a bunch. And of course, in the show notes, anytime you see a book link, you buy it, it comes to me. And .net/t-shirts will help us out. And lastly, again, something I don't talk about too much, but if you need coaching, whether it's via the Today's Choices, Tomorrow's Health, you need some help with taking those small steps and accountability so that you can actually lose the weight or start exercising more or get your budget in order, just let me know. I can help with that. Also, if you just need some minor marketing coaching or things like that, I can help you out with that as well. Just go to .net/support. And of course, on there, you can also host a cup of coffee or even more than that. There's different options available. So thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you next week or on the mini-sode. We just went #behind the curtain. I hope you will listen and integrate what some of these guests have said. By all means, please share it across your social media, write a review, and if you go to the show notes page, you can find all the references for today's guest. You've been listening to Dr. Justin Trosclair, giving you a doctor's perspective.